All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk to you about a very exciting thing. We're going to go through the Bitcoin Spot ETF. Yesterday on Wednesday, the Spot ETFs got approved by the SEC. We're going to talk about what that process was, what it means, what is a Bitcoin Spot ETF, why is it important to Bitcoin, how can you buy it, where can you buy it, and I also want to talk about why I think this is the biggest catalyst for Bitcoin in the history of Bitcoin, and I'm going to explain why I think this is going to create a very good year in 2024, 2025, and beyond. So obviously not financial advice. That is my opinion, but I'm going to walk you through my line of reasoning. I want to go all through this because this is really a once in a lifetime situation here. If you're new to the channel, we talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners all the time on this channel. So if that is content that you're interested in, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell. And of course, if everybody could please smash the like button. We're going for 500 likes on this video. It does help the channel out a lot and is much appreciated. Something very similar to this happened to gold, and it did launch a massive increase in the price of gold at the time. Obviously, Bitcoin is considered digital gold. We've only just begun. We haven't even started trading yet, so obviously time will tell. But let's get into it, and let's talk about the Bitcoin Spot ETF. Okay, so here's an article from yesterday afternoon. Bitcoin Spot ETFs are approved by the SEC and cleared to start trading on Thursday. We're going to talk more about that. Spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds are cleared to begin trading Thursday after receiving regulatory approval on Wednesday from the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. 11 Spot Bitcoin ETFs are approved. So this is the first thing I want to show you guys. You know, it's nice to talk about the Bitcoin Spot ETFs, but what are they? These are actually exchange traded funds, and they have stock tickers. So starting today, a lot of these are going to be available for trade. Now, almost all of these said that they're going to start trading today, so we're going to have to see what happens. I'm making this video long before the market opens. But I wanted to start out by showing you guys a list of the 11 ETFs with their tickers so that if you are interested, you can go purchase these or at least go take a closer look. Okay, so I want to show you guys the 11 spot ETFs that are now approved with their tickers. So you're going to see we've got Blackrock, ARK Invest, Wisdom Tree, Investco, Bitwise, VanEck, Franklin, Fidelity, Valkyrie, Grayscale. Now, they have a Bitcoin trust that is going to get converted to an ETF, and then Hashdex. So you see they've got some clever names here. BlackRock, of course, does iShares. BlackRock is the largest money manager, so they will be stock ticker IBIT, IBIT. Obviously, the ARK Invest fund will be ARKB. I'll let you look at the screen. These are the 11 tickers. So I wanted to start out by showing you these because obviously you can't trade these unless you know what they are. So these are the 11. These are their tickers. These are stock tickers just like any other ETF or really any other stock in the stock market. So this is one of the reasons why this is a big deal. We'll dig into that more. I wanted to start out by showing you the list. I'm going to look at just a few press releases because some of these are a little bit different than others, and there's a couple of important things here. So, number one, Grayscale. We know that Grayscale has had the Bitcoin trust. If you remember, just 6 or 8 months ago, this trust was trading at a 49%, almost a 50% discount. So if you bought that trust back then, not only did you get the gigantic run-up on Bitcoin in the meantime, but you got the run-up on that 50% discount, which will now be essentially zero. So Grayscale Investments receives the SEC approval to uplist Grayscale's Bitcoin trust to the New York Stock Exchange as a spot Bitcoin ETF. They talk about shares of GBTC are expected to commence trading on the New York Stock Exchange on January 11th, 2024. That is today. So if you're interested, obviously you can look for that today. Okay, this is a press release from Bitwise. Now, Bitwise has been advertising heavily lately. So I think that they were fairly confident, if not extremely confident, that this ETF was going to get approved. I expect to see a lot more advertising from Bitwise in the future. In addition to that, I think we're going to start to have advertising wars and fee wars. And that's why I wanted to show you this particular press release. This says Bitwise to launch the lowest cost spot Bitcoin ETF. Their ticker is BITB on January 11th. So again, that is today, with 0.2% management fees, and the fees are set to be 0% for the first 6 months. There is a caveat. I think that's on the first $1 billion. So this is going to be one of the differentiators between the 11 ETFs. there is a fee structure. Obviously, these are not free, but 0.2% is a very small, very reasonable fee. Right now, this is the lowest fee. I believe Fidelity is coming in at 0.25, so just a little bit more than this. These scale all the way up. The largest one I've seen is 1.5%. So that's one of the variables that's going to differentiate these Bitcoin ETFs. All of these companies are going to be vying for market share. So I do think they're going to aggressively pursue, first of all, their own clients. Most of these Bitcoin spot ETFs are being launched by the very large money managers. So they have a massive amount of their own clients. I do believe it will be gradually over time. I don't think they're going to go to all their customers on day one and say, hey, let's get all your money into our Bitcoin ETF, right? They have a lot of different products. This is one of many offerings from most of these companies that are launching these ETFs. But they're all going to be vying for this first mover advantage. And since 11 of them are happening on the same day, there's going to be massive competition. I think that is going to be good for the investors, for the retail investors, which is us. I also think it's going to be good for Bitcoin and the price of Bitcoin. So this is, I think, an everybody wins situation. Now, having said that, we have waited an awfully long time. The SEC's gone through a very arduous process to finally get this done. We're going to take a look at some quotes from Gary Gensler in a few minutes. He extremely begrudgingly did this, so we'll look at that in a minute. So in addition to these companies vying for their own customers, they're going to be vying for the rest of the retail customers. You know, not all of us have our money in Blackrock. So there's a lot of retail investors that are going to have to choose which one of these companies to invest in. Okay, speaking of BlackRock, BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF clears final SEC hurdle. So you'll see I've highlighted here in yellow, expected to begin trading on the NASDAQ on July 11th, 2024. So again, that is today. So I do think it looks like all of these are set up to start trading today. There are some hurdles they have to jump through. There's some forms they have to get approved. I think a lot of these are already approved. A few of them, may have gotten approved at either the end of the day or before business opens tomorrow. So all 11 are claiming that they will be open for business today. The SEC did have to make a final decision and either accept or reject the ARK Invest application. They could no longer do any more deferrals. So I know that's one of the reasons that everybody was targeting this date, but it's kind of unusual in the stock market when there's consensus and everybody's expecting an exact thing to happen in an exact date or time. It's very rare that it actually happens on that time. Well, it did happen this time. Now, I will take this moment to say we did have a little bit of a fake out. So something very unusual happened on the 9th. So right after the US equity markets closed on the 9th, the official Twitter or X account, sec.gov, posted that all 11 spot ETFs were approved. So we'll take a look at the chart later in just a few minutes, in 15 or 20 minutes. Bitcoin went absolutely crazy. The volume was massive. It spiked up and then it kind of crashed down, only to find out, within 20 minutes, Gary Gensler came out and said, no, that is incorrect. Our Twitter account was compromised and they are not approved. So he didn't say they were rejected, but on the 9th, that was a false alarm. That was a fake out. So you guys can be the judge as to what really happened, but they say their Twitter or X account was compromised, and that was a bogus post. So in the end, just one day later, on the 10th, we did get this just as expected. Okay, so here's an article like I was talking about. Fidelity lowers their proposed spot Bitcoin ETF fee to 0.25% amid fee race. So you can see the race is on, the competition is on, and it's going to be through the use of lowering fees, through the use of advertising, that these companies, I think, are going to aggressively pursue getting customers and early adoption. So this is one of the reasons I think that this is going to start right away to have a positive impact on Bitcoin. Now, by right away, I don't necessarily mean in the first 24 or 48 hours. There could be a period of time, whether it's a week or 2 weeks or a month, before this really starts to kick in. So don't be surprised if there's massive volatility in the middle. I think that's extremely important to talk about. Just because all of these got approved does not mean that starting tomorrow, billions or hundreds of billions of dollars are all of a sudden going to flow into Bitcoin. Okay, so why is this such a big deal? Here's an article from the New York Times. Regulators approved new type of Bitcoin fund in boon for crypto industry. There is already a Bitcoin futures ETF, but that ETF does not need to hold any Bitcoin. So that is why it really did not have a big impact on the price of Bitcoin when it was launched. I also think that's why the SEC was pretty quick to launch that versus the gigantic hoops that we've had to jump through to get this spot ETF. So these are a form of investment popular among wealth managers who control trillions of dollars in capital. So that is important. That is not an exaggeration, and it's actually tens of trillions of dollars. Blackrock alone has nearly $10 trillion under management. Fidelity is involved in this, along with 9 others, and that's just the initial 11 ETFs. All of the large money managers really have not had their clients in cryptocurrency, and the very few that have had it in a limited way. So this is opening this up to literally tens of trillions of dollars. So it says, rather than storing Bitcoin in online wallets, investors in ETFs would own shares in funds containing the digital currency. So that is the critical statement right there. These ETFs are going to have to actually own Bitcoin. So as you put money into an ETF and buy shares, the ETF itself has to go buy the underlying asset, which obviously in this instance is Bitcoin. So this increases the demand for Bitcoin. Unlike the futures ETF, which does not have to buy any Bitcoin, every single dollar that goes into one of these 11 spot ETFs, each one of those dollars is going to be put towards buying Bitcoin. There will be massive amounts of Bitcoin that come off of exchanges and are, basically locked up. And in some regards, you can consider that indefinitely. These funds are likely to grow over the next many years. So even though money may come in and out of them, in the aggregate, if they continue to grow, then all the Bitcoin that they buy basically is no longer available for trade, and that amount should grow over time. So this is a major increase in the demand for Bitcoin. And because of the fact that effectively, in all likelihood, they're going to have to buy and hold these Bitcoin, this is going to be a dramatic reduction in the supply of Bitcoin. So this is basic economics, supply and demand. So this is why I say that these Bitcoin ETFs are the gift that keeps on giving, because this will continue to be demand pressure on Bitcoin, and it will also continue to decrease the available supply. Right now, there's about $100 billion in gold ETFs. And remember, as money gets invested, there's a multiplier effect. So $100 billion invested into these ETFs will not increase the market cap of Bitcoin $100 billion. There is a multiplier effect, so it would be substantially more than that. Now, I'm not suggesting that there's going to be $100 billion anytime soon, but I do think you're going to see a lot more money flow into these than you think. I think it will be billions in a very short period of time. I think in the first 30 to 45 days, you will see billions of dollars go into these, and then it will turn into tens of billions. And I do think probably ultimately, in my opinion, there may end up being more money in the Bitcoin ETFs than there are in the gold ETFs. Obviously, that is my opinion. That is pure speculation. So, none of this is financial advice. We're going to see how this plays out over time. This is an article on CoinDesk, Gary Gensler's begrudging Bitcoin ETF concession. And quote, we did not approve or endorse Bitcoin. Now, they did approve the ETFs, but I'm just going to read a couple of quotes real quickly. Gary Gensler has been very anti-Bitcoin ETFs. In a lot of ways, he is perceived as very anti-cryptocurrency. That's my opinion. It seems to be a lot of people's opinion. You guys can judge for yourself. So, I think these quotes probably say it all. So he says, we did not approve or endorse Bitcoin. Investors should remain cautious about the myriad of risks associated with Bitcoin and products whose value is tied to crypto. In fact, he said that Bitcoin is, quote, is primarily a speculative, volatile asset that is also used for illicit activity, including ransomware, money laundering, sanction evasion, and terrorist financing. So this is not a ringing endorsement by any stretch of the imagination. It should in no way signal the Commission's willingness to approve listing standards for crypto asset securities, nor does the approval signal anything about the Commission's view as to the status of other crypto assets under the federal securities laws or about the current state of non-compliance of certain crypto asset market participants with the federal securities laws. So this is about the least ringing endorsement that you could possibly have. You can see, I think, that this is not something that he wanted to do. Lastly, I want to take a quick look at the Bitcoin chart. My main takeaway from the chart is this. There was no volatility today at all. And I will tell you, if I switch over to the Bitcoin 15-minute chart, you're going to see on the 9th, when we had a fake announcement, you can see a gigantic spike in volatility, this red line right here, and you can see a massive move to the upside and then a massive move to the downside very quickly. This candle wicked all the way down as far as 44,700 and all the way up as high as just under 48,000, by the end of which we determined that this was fake and the ETFs weren't even approved. So major volatility and major amounts of volume. If you look 24 hours later, when this actually got approved, you don't see any candles like this. We did have a nice move up in the few hours afterwards and then settled back down, and then no gigantic spikes in volume. So this was a pretty calm day. We were just a little bit more than sideways, and when you zoom out and look at the one day, you're going to see these last 3 days are pretty much just completely sideways. So this has been months and months of speculation and years in the planning. And after all of that, there was very little fanfare when this occurred, very little volume, and very little volatility. So I won't be surprised, and for all I know, by the time you're watching this, that has changed. Bitcoin is very volatile. If there is a pullback, I am not going to be concerned because the effect of this ETF, I think, is going to take weeks, months, and years. So over the course of the next 1 or 2 days or even the next week, we could see anything happen. So I just will leave you with that thought. Be prepared for anything. I do think in the long term, this is a monumental game changer for Bitcoin, but obviously in the short term, on any given day, anything can happen in cryptocurrency. That's what I got for you for now on the Bitcoin ETFs. So if you enjoyed this video, please remember to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.